Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Wednesday. It's November 13th. It is 2024. We have an 8-game NBA slate to talk about here on today's podcast, joined today by Mr. TJ himself, the Spidey Man. What's happening, my friend?
Not too much. Nice to see you again. Happy to be back. Sweating some NBA stuff right now. Nothing big, just a bunch of min cashes, things like that. Played a little too much Giannis, a little too much RJ Barrett. Good everywhere else, but waiting to see hopefully these Portland big men have a good game with DeAndre Ayton out, and then hopefully we can carry that into Wednesday.
Yeah, I have duds across like every lineup. So like my NBA night ended with these first few games kind of the only team that I have that's somewhat decent that could potentially make a run has Draymond, Clay, and Luka. So we'll see how that kind of shapes up. But yeah, it just feels like Goga. He was someone that I played a lot of on this slate, and Orlando just absolutely crushed Charlotte. The game wasn't even remotely close, so that kind of was awful. He was just a guy that he was like a staple in my builds, so that one hurt a lot. And then just a few other like guys that did okay, but didn't do, like you said. Giannis was someone that I played a bunch of. Bam, Tyler Hero kind of took that game over, which we definitely knew was possible. So yeah, ready to move on to the next slate. Excited that the NBA Cup is back. I'm really excited to watch this Dallas Golden State game with Clay and Curry going off against each other here, hopefully. So see how that game kind of shapes up. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Tuesday night over there on YouTube chat. And 8 games and a lot of back-to-backs, a lot to talk about. So let's jump right in. We get started with the Pacers and the Magic. 227.5 total here. Indiana, a 2.5-point favorite. Orlando on a back-to-back. We'll see what the injury report looks like for them tomorrow. I assume that Wendell Carter Jr. will be out here. And we know Paulo is going to be out. He's not going to be back for a little while. And then on the Pacers side, Nembhard, Nesmith, Wiseman, Isaiah Jackson out, Toppin questionable. Pacers first, TJ, what do you like here for Indiana?
Not a whole lot. I'm much more interested, I think, in the other side of this game. But, with some injuries, it does, like to guys like Nembhard, it does open up some things for me. Mathurin has been priced up. I do still think he's got a big ceiling, though. So even though the matchup's not great, I have some interest in Mathurin. And then TJ McConnell is probably the guy that I'm next most interested in after that. The minutes are absolutely not guaranteed, but anytime he hits 20 plus, he smashes that price tag. So I'd have a little bit of interest in McConnell, a little bit of interest in Mathurin. Siakam at 76, I think, is doable, but I don't have a ton of interest in this team.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest in the Pacers side of this game. I feel like Mathurin is the guy you could just keep taking shots on here. His minutes are fantastic. Over 37 fantasy points in 3 straight games. Has played at least 34 minutes in 3 straight games. So Mathurin is the guy that I probably have the most interest in for the Pacers. Tough defensive matchup. Orlando is a really good defensive team, even with the injuries. So just not a spot I love here for Indiana. On the Orlando side, Orlando on a back-to-back, but really didn't have to play their guys. Goga got in some foul trouble early, and then, just overall, the Magic absolutely crushed Charlotte. The point differential didn't matter in that game. It wasn't close. So what are your thoughts here on Orlando?
Yeah, I have a lot more interest in Orlando than the Indiana side. Big pace-up spot. Indiana plays nice and fast, and they're missing some guys like Banchero. Franz Wagner has just been absolutely lights out without Banchero. He played a great game on Tuesday night. Suggs left the game for a while with an injury and came back. He only played 18 minutes. That was 2 games ago. Sorry, this most recent game log isn't up. But that's kind of interesting to see if that would be something that maybe soar the next day on a back-to-back and he doesn't play, potentially opening up more value. For the most part, I think it's just Goga and Wagner for me. But if Suggs happens to be out, then I'll have a lot more interest in potentially some of these guards. but for the most part, I just kind of feel like they split a bunch of minutes, and I just don't know if like Caldwell Pope's probably going to 5x. I just don't really know if I would need that.
Yeah, I mean, for me on, the Klay Thompson intro right now, absolutely fire. I know chat's talking about it. Absolutely fire. Standing ovation from the crowd and from all the Golden State players. It's just a really cool scene. So we knew it was going to be electric with Klay going back to Golden State, and this game is going to be fantastic. As far as the Magic are concerned on this slate, you nailed it with Franz. He's been playing absolutely fantastic. So I obviously have some interest in him. Suggs played 28 minutes, even leaving the game for a little while. Didn't really need to play a lot in the fourth quarter. I don't mind going back to Goga here. They were very careful with KCP's minutes as well. Against Charlotte, they didn't bring him back. They just kind of let the young guys keep playing. So don't mind going back to Goga. I think he's back to 27 plus minutes here if this game stays close. And I think this game stays close. So, I like the pace up spot like you mentioned. Franz would be my main target here. Don't mind Goga. Don't mind KCP as value options here. Boston at Brooklyn, 217.5 total here. Boston, a 9-point favorite. Back-to-back for Boston. And then on the Brooklyn side, Bogdanovich, Sharp, Watford, Whitehead out, and Finney-Smith questionable. Start with Boston. I mean, just go under the assumption that Al Horford doesn't play in this game. I mean, I can't remember the last time Al Horford played a back-to-back. Boston coming off of a big loss against Atlanta without Trae Young. Will's favorite bet yesterday was Atlanta plus 15.5. That hit. That one
did money line too.
I don't know if he would have went money line, but we'll have to ask him. But yeah, I mean, for me on the Boston side, no Al Horford means I want to play Nemes Kuta at 4,500. Obviously, some interest in him just being cheap. No Al Horford. Outside of that, and like Brooklyn's a bad rebounding team. Don't think I get to Tatum today. I don't mind like White or Brown, but I think my main play here is going to be Nemes Kuta for Boston at 4,500.
Yeah, Queta is going to be the guy that I get to the most as well. Maybe a little bit of interest in Pritchard, but though Queta is number one option, Pritchard I think is fine, and then Jaylen Brown at 8,100 I still think is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing Jaylen Brown all season. It feels like I talk about him every day. But yeah, I mean, I think that very much in play at 8,100. I mean, he had like 37, I think, on Tuesday night. He had a big game, not fantasy points, like actual points. White shot lights out from three. I think he had like 5 or 6 or 7 threes in that game against Atlanta. So just couldn't get the job done on the Brooklyn side. I mean, tougher matchup, but we just saw Atlanta kind of roll out a very tight rotation. And I mean, these guys could potentially have a tight rotation here with Finney-Smith being questionable. Talked about Ben Simmons a lot last time out, and he went for 32 fantasy points, just kind of having like a Ben Simmons type of game. Still under 5K. I think that he's very much in play. I like Thomas. It's just he kind of disappears from time to time. So I think my main play from Brooklyn is going to be Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Minutes slowly starting to creep up there. He's still below 5K. Only played 22 last game, but his minute ceiling went up 2 games ago when he played the 27. So I'm with it. He's been putting up a really strong point per minute numbers. It may not be super necessary if a bunch of value opens up throughout the night, but as of right now, I think Ben Simmons does stand out as a very strong value. Outside of that, I don't think I want to play anybody else.
It's kind of where I'm at. Moving on, we got Cleveland
if Finney-Smith is out, I'll have interest in Zaire Williams and Jalen Wilson.
Cleveland at Philly, 220.5 total here. Cleveland a 9.5-point favorite. Philadelphia on a back-to-back. We'll talk about that in just a second. Allen questionable, Merrill questionable, Strus out for Cleveland. Let's start with the Cleveland side, and then we'll talk about the Philadelphia back-to-back situation. What are your thoughts here on the Cavs?
Everybody's in. I think it's maybe like a just sprinkle of Donovan Mitchell, and that'd be it. But I do think Jared Allen's going to miss this one. He's been benched in 2 straight games. He's played terribly. Now he's on the injury report as questionable. So I do think he probably misses this one. And if he does, Evan Mobley stands out as a really strong play at 7,800. And I'd have to see it projections to see kind of who they expect to see play more minutes, because since they kind of have the 2 centers, I don't think it necessarily means that a center will pick up a bunch more minutes. I think they could just go smaller. It could be LeVert. It could even be Jerome, somebody like that. So if somebody's projecting real well, I'll definitely take interest, because a guy like Jerome, if he gets over 20 minutes, he can absolutely smash.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the starting lineup looked like. I think that you kind of nailed that, because I think that it'd be Niang at 3,200 that potentially draws a start here. I don't know how much he'll actually play, maybe like 20 to 25 minutes, but at 3,200, if he draws the start, I'd have a lot of interest. And I think it's going to come down to like what happens with Philadelphia. Does Embiid play the back-to-back kind of situation? What type of size is Philadelphia going to have in this game? So I think that matters a lot here. Thoughts on the Philadelphia side here?
No. Like, if Paul George gets ruled out, then maybe I'll have some interest in some of these guys, but I can't really expect him to play big minutes on a back-to-back. If George is out, then there's no Embiid, no Maxey, no George. Then all of a sudden I'm looking at Andre Drummond, Kelly Oubre as potentially interesting, but the rest of these guys have been priced up. Jared McCain he played 31 minutes in back-to-back games before this past night. I'll double check, see how many he played.
He played 30 minutes again.
30 minutes again on Tuesday night. So without more guys, I do think McCain actually would be very interesting, and probably going to end up being a chalk value play.
I highly doubt Embiid plays this game, for what it's worth. I'd be shocked if he plays this game. As far as Paul George, this is our first back-to-back situation with him. So we will have to kind of see. He's coming off a really good game. I mean, Paul George had a really solid game, played 32 minutes, hit 7 threes, had a double-double, 29 and 10, had 4 stocks. Like, if you played Paul George on Tuesday night, he had a really strong game. Steph just hit a 3 and pointed at Clay. This is going to be a fun game. Sorry, I'm totally distracted by this. Like, as an NBA fan, I am completely distracted by this game with Clay and Steph doing their thing. So, sorry. But yeah, I mean, for me, McCain's the play here. I talked about him yesterday on the podcast. I played him. I'll go right back to the well on him in this spot. I think at 4,500. His usage has been incredibly high, and it's going to be even higher now with Embiid back off the floor. So he got up 16 shots off the bench on Tuesday night with Embiid playing. So Jared McCain, definitely somebody I want to play here on this slate.
And like probably pretty blowout proof too, which is exciting.
Yeah, I mean, 30 minutes, like you said, 3 straight games. So I think he'd play. Obviously a tough matchup, but we see guards actually do well against Cleveland this year. So I think that's the one position you kind of attack. This game is ugly. It's New Orleans at OKC taking on the Thunder, 222.5. The Thunder, they're a 14.5 point favorite in this game. Wow. I mean, crazy, right? So looking at the injury report here, Alvarado, Hawkins, Jones, McCollum, Murray, and Zion out for New Orleans. Hartenstein, Holmgren, and Williams out for the Thunder. And that's Jay Lynn, not Jaylene Williams. So that's kind of important. But yeah, let's start with the New Orleans side. Everybody's out. I mean, just play Ingram, play Boston. It'd be really interesting to see what Mike Murphy's minutes look like. He played 26 minutes in his return. I don't know if we can necessarily play Murphy at 5,800, even if he does play a few extra minutes. I think you're just playing Boston. I think Missy probably plays like 30 minutes here. I mean, they're just going to play all their guys because they're just going to be so limited here. So I think guys like Boston Jr. are probably blowout proof.
Yeah, I agree. I like Boston Jr. a lot in this spot. I like Messi too. I think that's a good call because he played 30 minutes last game for, I think, the first time this season. If not the first time this season, the first time in almost a month. And he's probably not going to go 7 for 8 from the field again, but he had a career high 11 rebounds. And now he's going up against an OKC team that already was a bad rebounding team and now is going to be without Chet Holmgren. Sure, you could just say maybe they'll go small, but they don't have any players left. So I think Messi's very interesting. He's a guy that could get 15 plus rebounds in this spot, I think. On the OKC side, but like not to just blow past it. I do really like Boston in this spot. Brandon Ingram less so because I think this game could get ugly. And if it does, I think Ingram's the one guy that does not close in blowout scenarios. On the other side of this game, like sheesh, SGA without Chet. First game, 45 real points, 77 DK points. And he only took 21 shots. Like he got to the free throw line an absolute ton. But I think SGA is looking like maybe the best spend up on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, I like Jalen Williams too, 8,100. I think you could potentially save some money with him. I think that he has a lot of upside. I hate the fact that they have him as center only now, but I definitely want to take some shots on him. The other guy I want to mention is Isaiah Joe. Over 20 fantasy points in 4 of the last 5 games, 4,500. If this game gets ugly, like I don't know if Isaiah Joe is the guy that's coming off the floor early in the fourth quarter, so he might actually get some extra run in this game. So I like him quite a bit here. Obviously, I think Dort probably plays 30 plus minutes again at 4,700. So I think those are 2 really solid value plays. I don't know if you can necessarily trust like Wallace and some of these other guys that come off the bench, but this game's not going to be a close basketball game. So like I completely understand taking some very cheap blowout value shots here on the Thunder.
Yeah, I agree. I like Isaiah Joe today as long as he's in the starting lineup. You'd kind of feel like eventually Caruso is going to start getting more minutes, but that's not going to happen. They're saving him for the playoffs. They want to make sure he's healthy. If Cason Wallace were to hop back into the starting lineup, I think he's interesting because he's got a price decrease, but Joe is the one I'm most interested in. I agree.
All right, we got Chicago at New York. Knicks, 227.5 total. Knicks, 8.5 point favorite. They're on a back-to-back. Ball out. Smith questionable. We'll see. As far as the Knicks concerned, as far as their injury report, I don't think Miles McBride, he had been dealing with like this knee. He played 26 minutes on Tuesday night. Maybe they're careful with him because he was already dealing with a knee injury. But I mean, we nailed this game on the podcast yesterday. We said that they were going to play a tight rotation in the NBA Cup. All 5 starters played 35 plus minutes. So OG played like 41. Towns and Brunson played a ton. So, I mean, the Knicks.
Well, Brunson got hurt in this one, didn't he?
Did he get hurt?
I thought so.
Oh, I mean,
re-scrolling through the feed. Oh, Brunson has left the game and returned to the game. So that's another one with Suggs that it's like, hey, maybe on a back-to-back, if that thing swells up a little bit, that could open up some real value if we see McBride stepping into a 40-minute role, Campaign stepping into a 30-minute role.
Yeah.
And that's if both of those 2 were to play. So it's like, if we get one of Brunson, McBride, Payne out, the other 2 are looking pretty good.
All right, let's start with the Chicago side of this game. What do we like here for the Bulls?
Nothing. I think they're viable as run backs because I'm really going to like the New York side of this game. Vucevic, Kobe White, and Levine and Giddey are all fine. I wouldn't play more than one in the lineup, I don't think. It's a big pace down spot for them. They can have big games where they kind of step into 5 stocks like Kobe White did last game, but when all of these guys are healthy, I don't really like any of them.
I think Zach LaVine's gotten to the point now where we're firing shots under 7K at 6,800 here. His usage is still fantastic. Like I think you're throwing darts at that point with him. So I think Vooch 8,100 probably too expensive for me in this spot, but I think that LaVine or White in play. I just really like the price tag on Zach LaVine. And like you said, we're gonna have interest in the Knicks here, especially like ankle injuries, if Brunson misses this game because of the ankle injuries are always worse the next day. So if he's out with like a sprained ankle here, I mean, we get McBride at 4,300. Chalky is playing the slate. OG is playing a gazillion minutes a night right now at 5,700. And we talk about the pace up spot. This is a fantastic pace up spot for the Knicks.
Agreed. If everybody is healthy, I just have moderate interest in kind of each of them. Anunoby, Bridges, Hart, I think are all very fine plays, and I want to get pieces of all of them in tournaments. Brunson, I do like, but he's probably my least favorite of the crew, assuming he plays. And Karl Anthony Towns would be my favorite. He's just been so incredible from a fantasy standpoint for the Knicks, playing upwards of 40 minutes, getting like every second game, it seems like, going over 50 fantasy points. So $8,700 Karl Anthony Towns will probably be my favorite, but Hart, Bridges, Anunoby, all of them are in really good spots for their prices. Bridges would probably be the one I would like best, but Anunoby started the year really tough, and he's been playing fantastic lately, so I'm totally fine just rolling with him as well.
Yeah, OG probably my favorite play here. I mean, this guy has 37 plus DK points in 4 of his last 5 games, and he's still under 6K. And he's playing 35 plus minutes a night and touching 40 minutes all the time. So, like, how do you not like OG here? I think he's a solid play.
We got some great updates. Paul George and Joel Embiid uncertain for Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, Embiid. I think Paul George is probably on the questionable side. Embiid's probably on the doubtful side. So yeah, I'd be shocked if Embiid plays that game. Doesn't really change anything for me. I mean, if Paul George sits 2, I think McCain is even better. What is that guy's name on the bench that I can't think of right now? That was really good in the Olympics. Yabasili.
Yeah.
He would be at 4,300 if Paul George and Embiid sit. I'd play a lot of him today. Going back to that Philadelphia spot. So if both of those guys are out, I would have a lot of interest in him as well. So he's a hustle player too. And I mean, him and McCain stacks are really, really cheap. So watch that news. I think that Embiid probably on the doubtful side. Just the fact that they said Paul George is uncertain, I put him on the questionable side too. Washington at San Antonio, 222.5 total here. Spurs a 7.5 point favorites. Neither team on the back-to-back, which is nice, but there is some injury news here. Bay, Brogdon out. Holmes questionable for Washington. Jones and Shohan out for San Antonio, and Branham questionable. We'll start here with the Washington side. What do we like here for the Wizards? Kuzma back.
I want to like them more than I do, but Kuzma being back makes it tougher because all of these guys are kind of priced up for his absence. And so I still think Carrington has a ceiling for his price tag, but I don't really know if I need to get there. Jordan Poole is the guy I'd be most interested in at 7,600.
Yeah, it's just not a ton of interest here with Kuzma coming back for me because like they're all priced like Kuzma's out still. So I don't hate the matchup. Obviously, I think the matchup is really solid. But outside of that, like Sarr, he's not playing enough minutes, and he's probably going to lose some minutes. Kispert's probably going to lose minutes with Kuzma coming back. Colby is the guy that I typically like to play, but now he's 6,200 too. I don't know if I want to pay 6,200 for him. I honestly might take some shots on Kuzma. You know, he played 24 minutes in his return. We kind of assume that he'll probably be in the 28 to 32 minute mark here. 7,200 for a guy that can put up 50 plus fantasy points, I think is kind of what you're looking at here on the Washington side. And like even like Keyshawn George, we talked about him a lot. He played 25 minutes with Kuzma coming back. So it's really tough for me to get on these Washington guys with Kuzma being back. On the San Antonio side, I mean, Wemby has a huge ceiling in this game. It's massive. He might be the spend up. You know, we talked about SGA. Depending on the value, you might be able to play both of those guys, but I think those are likely your 2 spend ups on this slate.
Yeah, I agree. Like Wemby, I don't like how much of his ceiling this year seems kind of dependent on how he's shooting the ball from three. I wish they'd give him the ball inside a little bit more and let him go to work, but still, he's got the highest ceiling on the slate. SGA, I think, has certainly a higher floor, but I think Wemby can absolutely match his ceiling. Outside of him, I don't know if I have any interest now that Devin Vassell is back. I think that muddies things up a little bit, unless we were to say get word that Vassell were to get his minutes ramped up from 22 to 28, then I think I would have a lot of interest in Vassell at that price tag. But otherwise, the rest of these guys are kind of all priced for other players on the team to be out. Like, sure, you could play Stephon Castle and maybe get a good game out of him, but there's just going to be better value on a big slate like this, I think.
Yeah, too many good spots. And we like the matchup against Washington. Don't get me wrong, this is a great game environment spot for them. If anything, maybe I'm taking shots on Chris Paul's assist prop or something. If it comes in at 7.5 or around that number. I like Castle. I think that he's very talented. He'd probably be the guy that I'd take shots on off the bench if I was going to take shots on anybody. But I think it's a Wemby spot. I think you're paying up for Wemby in this awesome matchup against Washington. Speaking of awesome matchups, this is probably the opposite. We got the Clippers and the Rockets, 215 total. Houston's a 5-point favorite. Bamba and Kawhi out for the Clippers still. Van Vliet questionable. We'll go to the Clippers side here first. What do we like here for LA?
Gonna need to do some research to see if, I know I keep looking at my phone, but I'm getting fired up when I see Robert Williams, who is 4% owned and I have 40% of, absolutely going off in 4 minutes so far with four rebounds, 4 points, 2 blocks already in 4 minutes. So I'm getting excited. But I'm going to need to do some research and see when the Clippers landed in Houston, if they already got there on Tuesday night. I don't know if I want to play James Harden returning back to his former home where he's had a lot of his glory days. I feel like there could be some hangovers and some late nights involved. And so James Harden at 9,600 all of a sudden looks a little worrisome. He hasn't shown the same ceiling over the last bit anyways. I think the guy I'm most interested in is Ivica Zubac, playing huge minutes lately. Şengün sucks at defense. I think Zubac is really the only guy that I have interest in terms of the starters. In terms of the backups, he doesn't play big minutes, but if anybody on this team is going to be vengeful, I bet you it would be Kevin Porter Jr.
Okay, here's the thing. I really like this spot for Zubac. I know he's 8,100, but I'm with you. A lot of interest in him. Norman Powell's been playing awesome basketball recently. He's been shooting lights out. Can that keep up? We'll see. But he has been incredibly consistent here recently. I like KPJ. I really wish they'd give him more minutes. If they gave him more minutes in this spot, I feel like you're not wrong. He's going to be playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. But did you see Norman Powell's third quarter the other night?
No.
Yeah, dude, it was incredible. I don't know how many actual points he had, but he had 30 fantasy points in the third quarter. It was wild. He had
funny.
3.
As a Raptor fan, there's been 2 players over the last 10-ish years that have played for them that they were almost the same guy, played the exact same role for the Raptors. Terrence Ross and Norman Powell, the weirdest guys to watch play basketball because they look like genuine superstars at times when they're on. And when their shot's not falling, you forget they're on the court. They played 30 Tony Snell minutes. It's wild.
Yeah, Norman Powell had 3 fantasy points at halftime, and I checked back and he had 30 plus fantasy points at the end of the third quarter. I was like, what the heck? So that was fantastic. On the Houston side of this game, I mean, first of all, Van Vliet matters a lot. If he plays or if he doesn't play, I don't know how much it really matters because, I mean, Houston's just such a good basketball team. But, I mean, what are your thoughts here when it comes to Houston?
If Van Vliet plays, I think he's interesting at 6,800. If he's out, I have a ton of interest in this whole team. Maybe Jalen Green less so, but I still would like him. But Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, and Shepherd, I would just be firing up all of them. Shepherd, I know, disappointed everybody the other night, but I still think I would have a little bit of interest in him at 3,200. Şengün at 81, I think, is very interesting as well, because he pretty much is always awesome as long as he gets the minutes. And the only thing that shuts him down isn't bad games. I mean, he's probably playing bad in real life, and that's why he's not getting the minutes, but isn't bad fantasy performances. It's just not getting enough minutes. And Zubac has been playing 20 or 35 plus minutes a night. And so if we can get that from Şengün too, especially say if, Steven Adams and Jock Landale aren't ready to go, I would be very, very interested in Şengün at this spot.
Yeah, man, I hear you.
Like a Zubac Şengün stack, like that's a nice way to go into the last games of the night.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't know. If Houston, if Van Vliet sits and Houston starts to get a lot of ownership, it might be a spot to just kind of be underweight on. I do like Thompson. I think he's super solid. I don't mind Jalen Green. I just think I'd rather play Şengün for $700 more if I was going to do that. We finished the slate out here with Detroit at Milwaukee. 220.5. I was shocked there was a total for this game. Milwaukee a 4.5-point favorite. Both these teams on a back-to-back. We do know that there's a good chance that Dame doesn't play in this game, and no chance Tim Hardaway plays in this game. I don't know if you saw the video of him leaving the arena in a wheelchair. Probably a concussion for him. So hopefully, fingers crossed that Tim Hardaway is okay. Thompson's going to be back soon. I don't think that he's going to play. I think they're going to give him maybe a week or so for conditioning purposes. And Durant just came back. So a lot of interesting stuff here for an 8:00 late last game on the slate type of situation. But we do have Washington, San Antonio, and Clippers, Rockets at the same time. So we do have some swaps we can make if we do get some news here. But let's start with Detroit. Cade Cunningham just kind of keeps doing his thing, balling out. I mean, Detroit, I think that was okay. Atlanta beating Boston, by far the biggest upset, I feel like, in the first day of the NBA Cup. But Detroit beating Miami, I think, shocked a lot of people, including myself. Huge game for Detroit and that win. We saw Cade have a big game. We saw Ivy and Tobias have big games, but I think the biggest thing was Malik Beasley. Tim Hardaway left that game. Malik Beasley ended up with 35 minutes. He's 4,200. Going back to Milwaukee, I think Malik Beasley is going to be pretty chalky today.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. The Malik Beasley call, 4,200. I don't mind that at all. If he's going to play big minutes, I think he's in a great spot. Cade Cunningham should be $1,000 cheaper, more expensive. He's a 10K player this year. And might as well just keep firing him up in every matchup until he's priced as such. Ivy's basically going to get you 30-ish points every game. If you land on him at 6,300, I think he's fine, but I don't love it. I think it'll be interesting to monitor Jalen Duren's status. He was questionable going into Tuesday night. Now this is a back-to-back, so if he misses, I think that makes Isaiah Stewart viable at 5,300. And maybe even makes it so we want to take a shot on Paul Reed. I don't think so, though. He didn't really pick up any extended minutes with Duren out last game. But I like the call on the Beasley value. It will be interesting to see how the rest of that team projects. But Cunningham is definitely the guy I have the most interest in.
Yeah, I mean, as you should. Cade looks awesome. But yeah, Beasley, I feel like Beasley is just going to be one of those guys that gets it. He's just going to see a ton of minutes here because of the injury to Tim Hardaway. So that's why I have a lot of interest in him. Detroit or Milwaukee side of this game, man, Giannis was such a huge disappointment. I know they won the game, and I feel like we all kind of played Giannis, and Giannis was kind of that guy. I mean, if Lillard's out, I think I go back to Giannis here and just kind of say, hey, I'm willing to have a short memory, but man, it stunk. That game stunk. I mean, there's no other terms for it. It was just bad.
Well, this is so interesting because the slate got released before the Milwaukee game, right? And so they tried to be proactive in terms of who they were pricing up for Dame's absence. And so AJ Green is 4,900. Jackson Jr. is 4,400. They even priced DeLon Wright up to 3,800. Rollins is still 3K. He started, he absolutely freaking smashed, and then he left the game with a shoulder injury. Now, they also had the game completely in control. They say it's shoulder instability he left with. It wasn't even immediate. It was after he went in and like he hit a three and still played for a while afterwards. If he plays, whether you're playing one lineup or 150, it doesn't matter the ownership. You play him in every single lineup. 3K flat. Like he's by far the best value on the slate. If he doesn't, and Lillard's out, all of a sudden things get really interesting. I think 4,900 for AJ Green is still too cheap. He played very well in that game as well. And then DeLon Wright at 3,800 going up against his former team in Detroit, I think is very interesting as well.
All right, let's play the morning grind game, and then we will get out of here, go watch the Dallas Golden State game. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. Favorite play under 5K to go 7X. Who do you got?
I will go Rollins / Wright.
All right.
Rollins if he's in, Wright if he's not.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the Boston game and Quita at 4,500. Absolutely. I'd be shocked if Al Horford plays. So
yeah,
Al Horford hasn't played a back-to-back in I think like 2 years. So I highly doubt Al Horford plays. Over 8K to go under 5X. Who's your bust today?
8K under 5X. I will say. Oh, sorry, it was sorted on only Milwaukee still. I'm gonna say James Harden. I'm gonna buy the he's gonna be partying too late tonight narrative.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I hear you. I think I'm gonna go Brandon Ingram today. Like I like BI. I think BI is a super solid play most nights, but BI on a back-to-back going into the Thunder, or not a back-to-back, but going into OKC, I think is in a game that should be a blowout. I'm gonna pass on BI today. Favorite 6X play.
Let's go with OG Anunoby.
Yeah, I obviously I like that a lot. Pace up spot, incredible spot, minutes wise. Lot of interest in OG. I'm with you. I was like thinking about this. I mean, obviously, like some value could kind of dictate this question. But I mean, how do we not play SGA and hope that he doesn't go for 60 plus here? So SGA, my favorite 6X play. You obviously worry a little bit about the game staying close. But yeah, I mean, love this. Favorite GPP ceiling play. Price doesn't matter. Who do you think has the highest ceiling on the slate?
Wemby.
Yeah, no doubt. Right there with you. Wemby is who I had written down. For the sake of the show, I'll go Cade Cunningham. Let's get weird GPP play of the day. Who do you think is going to be low owned that could be a difference maker today?
Let's go with. I feel like I just brought somebody up that I think is going to be low owned in one of these. Alperen Şengün.
There you go. I'm going to go Ben Simmons. I don't think Ben Simmons is going to get a ton of ownership. And as far as the betting questions today, listen, there's too much news. I don't think we want to bet anything night before. I think we want to be responsible. I was looking, there wasn't any props up for Philadelphia. If you have a prop up for like McCain and it's like 12.5 points or something like that, jump on that. I highly doubt Embiid plays. The usage is going to be great. It's not up on the Hard Rock, so that's one that I'm definitely looking at is McCain and Ubasele. Those two guys are going to be really interesting depending on the news.
McCain might be a fun one if you have access to it to like ladder it up to 20, 25 points.
Yeah, like I don't know if they'll give us a prop on him until the news drops in that game, but I mean, if you're in a place where you have that prop, I like his over.
Even after it drops, I think it could be too low.
Yeah, like I think if Embiid and Paul George get rolled out, they probably set it at like 16.5, and I think I'd still take the over. So that's TJ. I'm Stevie. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us. We're back tomorrow talking NFL with Noto. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you again tomorrow.